All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're tackling a company everyone thinks they know, Tesla.
Yeah, and we've got a really interesting mix of sources for this one. Articles, excerpts, even a tweet really digging deep.
Yeah, it's not just about electric cars and self-driving with Tesla, is it? From what I've seen, there's a whole lot more to uncover.
What really gets me about Tesla is how many times they've come this close to falling apart,
Yeah.
But then they just bounce back stronger. It's wild.
Makes you wonder how they do it, right? Like how much of that is just pure luck and how much is baked into their whole ethos.
$1 million question right there. And speaking of questions, how about we start with one a lot of people get wrong? Who actually founded Tesla?
Oh, good point. I bet most people just assume it was Elon Musk from day one.
Right. But our sources tell a different story. It all started with these two guys, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tarpenning, back in 2003. They had this vision, of a high-performance electric car that could go toe-to-toe with those gas-guzzling sports cars. Not your typical eco-friendly ride.
So where does Musk enter the picture then, if it wasn't his brainchild initially?
Musk came in early on as an investor, saw potential in what they were building, which, let's be honest, took vision back then. But even before he officially became CEO in 2008, his influence loomed large. He pushed them to dream bigger, aim higher. The Musk effect, I guess you could say.
And that led to their first big splash, the Tesla Roadster. But ambition often comes with a price tag, doesn't it? Our sources mention it cost way more than they planned.
Oh yeah, that's putting it mildly. They budgeted something like $25 million, which even that's a chunk of change, right? But it ended up costing almost 6 times that. Closer to $140 million to get those roadsters on the road.
Talk about a budget blowout. That's a pretty clear sign of how Tesla operates, though, isn't it? Pushing boundaries no matter the cost.
For sure. And remember, this is all happening right before the 2008 financial crisis. Talk about terrible timing.
Yeah, that had to be a nightmare scenario for a young company like Tesla. Already on shaky ground, then the whole economy goes haywire.
It was brutal. By 2008, they were bleeding money. Cash reserves dwindled to a measly $9 million. To put that in perspective these days, that wouldn't even keep the lights on at Tesla for a week. Probably.
It's insane to think a company now worth so much was that close to just vanishing overnight.
They were days away from shutting down. Literally. It's like something out of a movie.
So how'd they pull off the escape act? What did it take to climb out of that hole?
It's a combination of things, honestly. A bit of luck. Some would say desperation. Musk dug deep into his own pockets, poured in $40 million of his own money. Money he got from selling off part of another company he built, by the way. This wasn't just business for him. He was all in.
That's commitment for sure. But even with that, it still wasn't enough, was it?
Not even close. They needed a lifeline, and fast.
Sure.
That's when Daimler, the German automotive giant, stepped in, invested $50 million, which back then, during that crisis, huge vote of confidence from a titan like Daimler.
Okay, so that must have been a huge relief, having someone like Daimler backing you up.
It helped, definitely. But it was still a drop in the bucket compared to what they needed. Remember, everyone's panicking, credit's frozen, the whole system's on the verge of collapse.
So they're still hanging on that thread. What was the final move that saved them?
Musk, in a last-ditch effort, somehow secures a $465 million loan from the U.S. Department of Energy. It was part of this program to boost electric vehicle development, but the timing. It came through at the 11th hour. Without it, Tesla would be ancient history.
Talk about dodging a bullet. It's amazing how they clawed their way back from the abyss. Not many companies could say they've stared down bankruptcy like that and lived to tell the tale.
It's more than just surviving, though, isn't it? That whole near-death experience in 2008, it's like it became part of Tesla's DNA, this company that not only pushes tech boundaries, but financial ones, too. It's almost like they need that edge to operate.
So they're not just making cars, they're making a statement.
In a way, yeah. And that brings us to their next big gamble, the Model S. No more playing it safe after that close call. They went all in again.
So they're riding high on defying the odds, surviving 2008, and then they roll the dice again with the Model S. But this wasn't just another sports car, right? This was different.
Totally different ball game. The Model S was Tesla aiming for the big leagues, the luxury sedan market. Think BMW, Mercedes, those guys. They weren't content with a niche audience anymore.
That's gutsy, going after those established players, especially coming off a near-death experience like they just had. Weren't they worried about scaring off investors?
Well, it wasn't exactly smooth sailing, that's for sure. They still had kinks to work out with mass production. Our sources mentioned those early Model S owners. Some had issues crop up, And apparently some folks who put down deposits were having second thoughts when it was time to actually sign on the dotted line.
Ouch, yeah, that's gotta sting after you've poured your heart and soul into a project, right? To have customers getting cold feet, how did Tesla handle that?
This is classic Tesla, scrappy to the core. Instead of panicking, they had employees picking up the phone, calling those hesitant buyers directly. Talk about hands-on customer service, talking through concerns, whatever it took to close the deal.
That's some serious hustle. You don't see that from the big automakers too often, do you? So, did it work?
It did, eventually. By 2013, they'd ironed out those production wrinkles, the car was getting rave reviews, and more importantly, they announced their first ever quarterly profit.
Music to any investor's ears, right? After years of burning cash, they're finally in the black. That must have been a turning point for the company's image.
Huge turning point. The Model S wasn't just good, it was desirable. It showed the world electric cars could be luxurious, even sexy. And for those watching the bottom line, it proved Tesla might actually be, a real business.
Like they finally had staying power. They weren't just a flash in the pan. But knowing Tesla, they weren't content to rest on their laurels, were they? Their next act was even bolder. The Model 3, aiming for a true mass-market electric car.
The Model 3 was a whole different level of ambition. They weren't just competing anymore, they were aiming to upend the entire industry. And the public went nuts.
Speaking of nuts, our sources talk about these insane pre-orders, hundreds of thousands of them, before most people had even seen the Model 3 in person. That's brand loyalty on another level.
It was a level of hype nobody had seen before in the car world, honestly. But all that excitement, it came with a cost. Tesla had to deliver, and fast. That's how they ended up in what Musk himself called production hell.
Production hell. It doesn't sound like a fun place to be. What exactly went wrong? I mean, they've been making cars for a while now, hadn't they?
See, they tried to ramp up production way too fast to meet those insane deadlines they'd set. And their super high-tech, automated factories, the ones that were supposed to be their advantage, they ended up being the biggest bottleneck. One tiny glitch could throw the whole system off. And boy, were there glitches.
So, a case of biting off more than they could chew?
In a way, yeah. Plus, this is Tesla we're talking about. It's never simple. They had supply chain issues, software acting up, you name it. It was a perfect storm. Musk even admitted later that they were weeks away from bankruptcy again during that time.
You're kidding. This is nuts. It's like every time they're about to hit it big, they somehow end up teetering on the edge of oblivion again. You couldn't write this stuff.
It's like they thrive on the drama, on proving everyone wrong. But speaking of dramatic, one of your sources, just a single tweet actually, sums up this whole tendency perfectly.
You're talking about the infamous funding secured tweet, right? The one that landed Musk in hot water with the SEC.
That's the one. And it shows how even with all their success, controversy's never too far behind. Tesla's never boring, that's for sure.
Okay, let's break down this funding secured tweet. Because wow, what a story. So, 2018, Elon Musk tweets he's thinking about taking Tesla private, right? At $420 a share, no less. And that the funding for this is, quote, secured. What does that even mean for a company like Tesla to go private?
Well, for starters, it's a massive undertaking. We're not talking about some small startup here. Tesla's huge. But the real issue, at least according to the SEC, was that the funding wasn't actually lined up when he hit send on that tweet.
So essentially, he jumped the gun, made a promise he couldn't keep.
That's putting it mildly. The SEC claimed he misled investors, plain and simple, said his tweet artificially pumped up Tesla's stock, and when the deal inevitably fell apart, well, a lot of people lost money.
Oof, yeah, that's not a good look. So what happened? Did Musk just apologize and it all went away?
Not quite. This turned into a whole legal battle royale. The SEC was not messing around. They slapped both Musk and Tesla with fines, $20 million a pop.
Ouch, that's got her, even for a billionaire. Anything else? Or did they just cut a check and call it even?
Well, Musk also had to step down as chairman of the board. He got to stay on as CEO, which some people saw as a slap on the wrist. But more importantly, Tesla had to agree to basically put a muzzle on Musk, at least when it came to making big pronouncements on social media.
Because clearly the man can move markets with a single tweet. Who knew 140 characters could cause so much chaos?
Right. It's a whole new world out there. But speaking of questionable decisions, we got to talk about Solar City. Our sources definitely had some thoughts on that one. And it's another example of Tesla's, shall we say, adventurous side.
Right, the Solar City acquisition. At first glance, it almost seems like a no-brainer, right? Solar panels, electric cars, all under the same eco-friendly umbrella.
That was the pitch, for sure. Solar City was a giant in the residential solar world. And Musk, he had this grand vision. See, Tesla customers, they would just drive electric. They'd power their homes with clean energy, all from one company. Seamless.
Sounds pretty utopian. So what was the problem?
Well, for starters, Solar City was hemorrhaging money at the time, like really struggling to stay afloat. Their stock was in the tank. So naturally, some people saw the acquisition as less of a strategic merger and more like Tesla throwing a lifeline to a drowning man.
And Musk, being a major shareholder in both companies, probably didn't help those optics, I imagine.
Not one bit. There were accusations of conflicts of interest, people questioning if Tesla was overpaying just to bail out Musk's other baby. It got messy, fast.
So was it the right move? Another brilliant Tesla gamble that paid off, or a misstep that they'll regret?
Honestly, the jury's still out on that one. Only time will tell how it all shakes out in the long run. On the one hand, it gave Tesla a foothold in the solar market, which is booming. But on the other, it added a whole other layer of risk to a company that was already known for living on the edge.
It's that constant tension that makes Tesla such a roller coaster ride, isn't it? This mix of groundbreaking innovation and potential catastrophe. They're always pushing the limits, but sometimes it feels like they're one wrong move away from crashing and burning.
That about sums it up. And that's what makes them so fascinating to watch. They've rewritten the rules of the auto industry, challenged what we thought was possible with energy, but they've also shown us that even the most innovative companies aren't invincible.
It's a wild story, that's for sure. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with?
For me, it's that true disruption is rarely a straight line to success. It's messy, it's risky, and it takes more than just a good idea. You need that unwavering belief, the guts to defy the odds, and yeah, maybe a little luck sprinkled in. Tesla's journey is a testament to all of that.
Well said. And it reminds us that the future is far from certain. It's shaped by the choices we make, the risks we take, and the lessons we learn along the way. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. It's been enlightening.
My pleasure. Always a blast to peek behind the curtain of a company like Tesla, especially with such intriguing sources to work with.